I'm telling you, the reason why the webinar model or why the webinar itself is the most effective thing that anybody online can use is because it always starts with the premise of value in advance of sales. It's a zero risk for you way to provide value, and it's a zero risk way for your audience to engage in that interaction. Okay? And you only really earn as if you have impact. Now here's the caveat. This is not just education, because there's a billion videos on YouTube and there's a billion podcasts out there, and they all educate until they're blue in the face, and none of them really makes a difference. Because you now know the raw ingredients, which you have by following us at Rapid Crush on how to do webinars. We create education to transform. So every model I showed you today has transformation built into it. From that third-party integration example to the webinar on demand, your I have a dream speech of what we stand for, to the, hey, I just want to help you find the best solution. Hopefully it's mine, but regardless, that's all education for transformation baked in and built into it within the webinar itself. Everything else is just the creativity of, well, this is the right tool and how to deploy a webinar for this scenario, which is different than that scenario. It's still a webinar, but the way the webinar is deployed and how it looks and feels is slightly altered. But at the end of the day, it's the webinar. The webinar is the answer. The question just is in what way. If you ever need any help on any of this, I have a mind that always knows the best way to use a webinar. And for our clients, the primary way I help with onboarding clients is going into our team and saying, this is the position, this is the webinar model, and this is how we create it. This is the framework for it. And then they, boom, they knock it out of the park. So there you go. All right, it's 1:03 p.m. Woo! Hour went by just like that, at least for me. I don't know about you. I got to be out of here at in about 4 minutes. So I'm just going to take a look real quickly and answer a few questions if I can here. All right, so Yvonne asks, how would you use webinars to try and get home listings from homeowners? I'm a realtor. That's a fantastic question. The brilliant thing about that is I would use the same thing that we just talked about with Kajabi. I'd say regardless of what realtor you use, whether it's me or somebody else, this is what I've noticed by clients who have a really good experience dealing with realtors and clients that don't have such a good experience. These are the commonalities that I found that have made a realtor-client relationship super successful, and these are the issues that most people have with their realtors. And hopefully you'll make a conclusion that if I'm the right realtor for you, we can move forward with that. But there may be reasons why we shouldn't move forward together. But what's great is you will then be able to go out and find the right realtor for you. Because I just want the realtor-client relationship to run as smoothly as possible, because then everybody wins. Okay, that's brilliant, right? I mean, just straight up right there. Your position as a third-party independent advisor who just so happens to also kind of be a realtor in their spare time. And then you can use an on-demand webinar promotion scheme to sell that. That could be your PS in every email. That could be on your web page. That could be the text this for this webinar. That can be if people want to refer you, you say, listen, no, don't refer me. Just send them to this webinar first. And then the webinar can then book an appointment off the back of that. That can be how the phones can ring. That can be how they engage you via an email follow-up, whatever the case may be. Does that make sense? It's a really simple model. You know, I always like to joke about how that whole, you know, my good friend Joe Polish, you know, revolutionized the carpet cleaning industry because he said the 7 mistakes people make when they hire a carpet cleaner. That model is the same today as it was back in. The only difference is it's not a free report or a free audio recording. It is a 45 or 60-minute long webinar. When people try to do blank, this is what gets in the way of their success. It's outcome specific, and it just so happens you have a solution. You know, so we had a local dentist that we engaged with as services, where we talked about how to make sure that you know what dentist to use for what service. That wasn't even the right thing. I think the positioning we came up with was, you know, people don't know. Typically, here's what happens with a dentist. This is what I found out when I talked to the dentist. People are sitting very vulnerably in the chair, mouth open, at the mercy of the dentist. And if that dentist recommends something to them, which usually is a very expensive thing, people feel like they have to say yes, even if it's not a thing they necessarily need. They're very compromised in that position. And so a lot of big dentists, corporations that are competitive with the small-time independent dentist, they're really good at extracting not just teeth, but they're extracting money with the patient as well. And so we can position it and talk about, how do you know if you need these services? These are the, I think it went like this. These are the 4 things that big dental corporations offer that are the most abused. And I'm getting the terminology wrong right now, so hopefully you understand what I'm saying. But it's like, these 4 things that are often offered to patients are usually not needed. This is why dentists offer them. This is how much money it can make them by offering them. And this is the questions you should ask them to make sure that you need these or not, right? And that was the free thing that we created in a webinar fashion. We basically just said, these are the 4 services that are exploited most often by dentists because they have huge amounts of margin. And they can be very convincing that makes you feel like you need them. However, what we discovered is only a small portion of people who get these procedures actually need them. Here's how to determine if you need this or not. And then if you do need this, this is how you determine if it's a good deal for you or not. And then I said, you could sell them nothing, just normal teeth cleaning at that point. And they're going to be cool with you because you're the only one helping them understand and making them more informative to the solution. You're peeling back the curtain when everybody else, they don't know. They have no idea. They're just, one dentist can be substituted for the next. All right. Jorge says, how do you add value to the audience of registering to a webinar when there is an easier for them to connect via a Facebook Live? Well, the answer to that is there's really no difference in my mind between a Facebook Live and a webinar. They're both ways to present. I personally would recommend you use both if you can. However, if I could only choose one or the other, I will choose a Zoom webinar over a Facebook Live every single day of the week. The difference is, think about it this way. If I'm giving my presentation in a crowded hallway with a lot of noise and people running back and forth, it has a different impact than if I'm doing it in a private, secret, undisclosed location. And that's kind of the difference between a webinar platform, which is kind of more intimate, and a Facebook Live, which is kind of more in a busy hallway. Now, again, both of them have their uses, and I recommend you do both in tandem. Start with a webinar and then follow up with a live, or start with a live and then follow up with a webinar. The beautiful thing is this isn't an either-or proposition. The challenge, though, is if I only could do one first, which one would it be? And it's going to be the webinar. The other thing is Facebook Lives get chewed up and spit out. They don't have the longevity that webinars do. Okay? And by the way, I know the creator of I Had a Conversation is a great story. And unfortunately, I'm going to run out of time. Randy Zuckerberg, Mark's sister, who I made fun of earlier, right? I had the pleasure of sitting down and talking with Randy Zuckerberg for about like 20 minutes, and she was the one that pioneered Facebook Live. And I will never forget this conversation. We had 4 different people who had just went through the Genius webinar program talking about how much money I made them. And that's when Randy was like, oh my God, I got to get to know you. I could not have asked for a better situation, right? So here's the creator of Facebook Live asking me questions about how to use webinars. That's how, webinars are just so effective like that. But you should do both, okay? That's cool. Max Peter says, we did the non-content webinar at work. Copy class is awesome. We're teaching our copywriting course in the same mechanisms, 6 live classes. Yeah, that's what I like. What's the easiest way to get from point A to point B? Let's start there. Let's make some money. Let's get the ball rolling, and then we can always optimize. But it's hard to improve 0. But it's easy to say, hey, there's 10 million out there. We only got 1 million the first round around, but we have an unlimited amount of attempts to get the other 9 million. That's the position you want to be in. If we can help you in any way, shape, or form, drop us a line, support@rapidcrush.com. Again, it's a simple email, support@rapidcrush.com. And let's figure out a way where you can pay us a little bit of money and we can make you a lot of money. All right?